Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took exception.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to the Daily Memphian Grizzlies podcast. I'm Chris Herrington, and I'm in the captain's chair for this bonus edition of the Grizzlies pod. You can subscribe to this podcast and all of our other Daily Memphian pods, wherever you get your audio, and you can always find them on our site at dailymemphian.com. If you haven't already, we encourage you to sign up. I encourage you to sign up for colleague Drew Hill's twice weekly Grizzlies Insider newsletter, which will include links to all of our Grizzlies stories and podcasts and other quote-unquote content. If you're not a subscriber to the Daily Memphian generally, definitely encourage you to do that. We've been doing these bonus pods, not every week, but occasionally this season. And one feature of them has been our Memphis-Nashville home and away series. And we're back. We're back at it with our old friend Keith Parrish of the Grits and Grinds podcast and of the Fast Break Breakfast podcast. What's up, Keith?
What's up, Chris? How are you doing?
Doing well. We're coming out of the All-Star break. We got some basketball coming tonight. We're recording Thursday morning as play resumes, depending on when you're listening. The Grizzlies may have a game in the books. By the time the podcast is out, or by the time you listen to it, I think the pod will be out before then. I'm ready for some basketball. I enjoyed the break from basketball. I enjoyed not having to really care about All-Star weekend that much, but I really wanted that Nuggets-Cavs game to be on last night. I was ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. You're
Yeah, I was looking at the slate tonight. The slate on Thursday night is incredible. There's a bunch of really important big games. Nuggets, Cavs, like you mentioned, of course, Grizzlies, Sixers. I want to say there's like Pelicans, Timberwolves. There's just a lot of important matchups. Warriors, Lakers. I believe there's just like, couldn't they spread these out? Why are there so many good games all at once now?
I would really like to, when I could watch part of it, I can toggle. You can always go back on League Pass or whatever and watch later, but I would like to watch that Cavs Nuggets game. But I'll be watching Grizzlies Sixers. So I'll keep an eye on that. So Keith, I gave you some homework assignments. I'm quasi prepared this week as I wasn't much, maybe the last time we talked, I can't remember. We're going to talk about a few different things on the pod, but first thing we're going to do to put the focus back on the floor product, on basketball as it resumes tonight. I asked you for three things, Grizzly specific things as games resume, you're interested in seeing down the stretch, that you're looking for down the stretch. I have my own three. I'll let you go first. Well, let's talk about it.
Well, with this homework assignment, I wasn't sure whether to do things like I hoped I would see, but didn't have much hope of occurring, or things that I thought were likely to see, that we were likely to see. I'll start with like a thing that I hope is likely to see that I think is very important for the final 25 games. And I'm looking forward to Dillon Brooks ending his slump. I think it's been long enough, Dillon. That's the one thing I'm hoping for over the final 25 games. Like Dillon can't be this terrible on offense. He can't do career lows on offense. He can't make whatever it is, 25% of his jumpers. Like they can't be this bad. So I'm looking forward to Dillon shaking off what's been a really rough last couple of months on the offensive end.
Yeah. So that's sort of one of mine. So we'll pair up there. I want Dillon Brooks to just make some 3-pointers.
Sure.
So here's a stat for you. So in the 2022 part of the 2022-2023 season, Dillon Brooks shot 35% from three on 6 attempts a game. That was in 32 games before the calendar flipped. 35% from three was his career average in the first 4 seasons of his career. This is something he is capable of doing. 35% is not a huge mountain to climb. 35% on middling volume. That's good. That's what I want. Since the calendar flipped, the 2023 part of the 2022-2023 season, he has shot 23% from three on 5 attempts a game. That's over 20 games. That's not acceptable. Like, that's not okay. And so I don't need a lot from Dillon Brooks. I am glad that his shot volume has gone down amid this slump. I don't think there's a relationship, between the volume going down and the efficiency going down. Generally, there should be an inverse relationship there. fewer shots should mean better shots, should mean your efficiency goes up. That has not been the case for him. I think his shot selection has gotten better, and for some reason he's just not making anything. And so if he can just keep the shot volume and selection he's had over the past month and just make 35%, 33%, 32%, something like that, I'll feel great about it.
Yeah, you said you don't think there's any correlation between his reduced shot volume, but I do wonder. I'm going to do something real dumb right now, which podcasters do all the time. I'm going to compare my experience playing church league basketball with the experience of those playing NBA basketball.
Sure.
I will say, in my church league basketball days, where I was a pretty good church league basketball player in Nashville, Tennessee, there was a relationship between, like, if I was playing with people who were better than I was and they were on my team and I got the ball less, I shot way worse. I needed to have the ball in my hands to really get going. If I was like maybe the best player on my team, I could fill it up. But like maybe there's a relationship where Dylan needs to have 5 or 6 shots, just carry him off the rim to get his rhythm going, and maybe only attempting 10 field goal attempts a game when Bane and Jaron and Ja are all playing. Maybe it is somehow affecting his overall field goal percentage. I hope not, because you would think he should be able to pick his spots and shoot a higher percentage, but he hadn't been making anything.
No, I think there could be something to that. Sort of the self-consciousness aspect of knowing he needs to recalibrate. So let's interrupt this gimmick for a new gimmick since you brought it up. So your church league is my college murals and college era pickup.
Yeah.
And I abandoned my game far too early into my 20s, and I regret that. Give me your scouting report on the Keith Parrish Church League peak of powers scouting report.
Peak of powers. I was a combination of Pau Gasol and maybe Tayshaun Prince. I was like a 4 usually in my. I played college intramurals too. I'm a scrappy, tough defender. I got a strange looking jumper, but I could get on heaters where I mainly would kill you defensively. A lot of steals, a lot of blocks, a lot of fouls. But then if we're playing pickup, I'm going to foul a lot. But when there's a referee game, had to take it a little bit easy, but I was a solid defender, hustle energy guy with a pretty okay, back to the basket game. And then, I could also hit some jumpers. So kind of like I feel like I was Tayshaun Prince-esque, maybe early Pistons career where he was asked to score a little bit more.
I was, I think, a little bit more of a big man than you, more of a 4-5, since you were more of a 4-3.
Yeah.
I'm more of a 4-5, good scorer, not a good shooter.
Yeah.
Decent rebounder, physical inside defender, not a shot blocker, physical inside defender, no lateral quickness, 0 lateral quickness.
Yeah.
No, not good court vision, bad court vision.
Yeah.
I was sort of like in the poor man's Zebo Julius Randle kind of mode.
Sure.
My game.
Yeah, you wanted me to put the ball on the floor. That's what you wanted. Like, I'm, as long as I'm not dribbling, post up, baby hook, or standstill mid-range jumper out to the 3-point line, good. If you made me dribble, I had some problems.
All right. So now we've got our scouting report. So we both had Dylan Brooks getting his offense back going a little bit. So I'll go back to you for your second thing you're looking for.
Okay, this is sort of related to Dylan struggling. One thing I'm looking forward to that I hope is going to happen, that I don't think is going to happen though, but I'm hopeful that Santi Aldama gets freed to a greater degree, gets more and more playing time, and also gets playing time as a small forward. I want to see Santi at the 3. The way he's been shooting the basketball, I feel like you have to try that at least sometimes. I'm fearful we're going to go the other direction and we're going to lean more into small ball. But as I look at the rest of the Western Conference, I don't think the Grizzlies small ball, if we're talking about like a Ja, Luke Kennard, Desmond Bane 1-3, or like Dylan at the 4, I don't think that's going to be good enough to beat like the Nuggets or the Clippers or the Mavericks or the Warriors. Or if, some miracle happens and we make it to the NBA finals, you can't beat the Bucks and the Celtics going small ball. So I want to see like an opportunity of like, what happens when Santi Aldama is just the 3? I think it works. Like not even just with like hyper specific lineups where it's Jaron and Brandon at the 4 or 5, like play Santi at the 3 when Steven Adams is out there. He's one of our best shooters. He's one of our most consistent shooters. And I feel like he can play out on the wing more. And I want to see more of that.
All right. This overlaps a little bit with one of mine, which is the idea of Santi at the 3 is a component of one of mine.
Yeah.
And my general thing is the regular season still a laboratory, or is it only going to be a laboratory relative to like Luke Kennard and working him in? Because I'm not out on John Conchar as a regular season innings eater, but I think we know what John Conchar is and isn't relative to playoff basketball. I think I remember when they traded for Kennard, someone tweeted a picture of Kennard with the line, "I'm the Jitty now."
Yeah.
And I sort of feel that way relative to the Grizzlies' potential, rotations. I would rather see them, take the opportunity this last 25 games and still give chances to more dynamic, higher upside players at that fourth wing spot in a 10-man rotation. With Kennard out, it would be even a third wing spot in a 10-man rotation against the Sixers. You could always go back to Conchar. And so the path of least resistance is giving Conchar those minutes. I would rather see them play Aldama at the 3 and test that out more, like you said. I would even rather see them give some more shots to a Roddy, who I think will probably play against Philadelphia, a Jake LaRavia, a Zaire Williams. I just think we may be past the point of feeling like those 3 players, LaRavia, Roddy, and Williams, could play in the playoffs at all. But even last year, Zaire Williams was better in the playoffs than John Conchar was, as up and down as he was. And I just think they have to have some kind of dynamism from somewhere on the wing beyond Bane, Brooks, Kennard, who are all kind of small and not particularly athletic. I think they would still hope maybe to get something from Zaire Williams, some pop, some vertical spacing, and some athleticism from him at that spot. Roddy will at least throw people around. But maybe if you want to scale it down to a 9-man rotation as you get ready into the playoffs, which I think is probably what they'll do in the playoffs, that 9-man rotation needs to include Santi Aldama getting some minutes at the 3. I just think you have to try to find something more dynamic with some of those wing minutes than what Conchar is going to give you. You could always go back to Conchar. That could be your break in case of emergency. But especially with Kennard soaking up a lot of those minutes, you got to have some other kind of athleticism, size, dynamism out there on the wing in your mix. And so I'm looking for them to experiment with things that aren't the Conchar minutes. To me, again, I'm not totally out on Conchar, but at this point, as you start to go into the playoffs, I just think you got to try to find a more productive use of those minutes than what he's going to give you.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought about considering was like, for what I'm looking forward to, is one of those is Zaire Williams going to do anything? Are we done with Zaire Williams this year? I don't think. I'm guessing that like we're done kind of with LaRavia and Roddy getting to go this season. I'm a little surprised how they've been deploying them to the hustle games.
Right.
And I guess you have this long-term vision of what they're gonna do this year. But like Zaire, you think, you got to have something. He's got to be better than Conchar, but I don't know. For me, I'm not even anticipating that much from Zaire. And I think it's interesting that like we had this impression of Zaire being pretty solid last year in the playoffs. It
wasn't, but Conchar gave you nothing.
Conchar gave you nothing. Like he seemed like he was passing up shots, and that was one of those things where all right.
This is garbage time minutes, but he played like 9, appeared in like 8 or 9 playoff games, and scored in 1 playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. And like Zaire had that big game against the Warriors where he knocked down a bunch of threes, and so you're like, oh, this is our rookie stepping up on the big stage. Beyond that, it was hit or miss. Not a lot. He was finishing those alley-oops. I know he had a lot of alley-oop finishes against the Warriors, I feel like, in my memory. But like we thought just those flashes, okay, if we can continue this good end of the season he had, and then we assume whatever, the Grizzlies machine of developing players, it's going to be fruitful, and he'll help this year. And his contributions this year have been, just spectacularly underwhelming and disappointing. And I don't know if I'm supposed to still hope for stuff for him for the remainder of the year and for the playoffs. Like Conchar, I think, honestly, maybe the moment was too big last year, but like, I'm not done with guys based on like a playoff performance. Like he got that under his belt. Like maybe he could be better the next time around. I do trust him more than a lot of the guys that the Grizzlies, have on the roster, those rookies. But this is why I go to Santi, where I'm like, forget it all. All right, maybe there's no Zaire coming. Maybe Roddy and LaRavia. Free Santi. Let's just experiment. Let's make this regular season a laboratory and see what happens when we play Santi out on the wing a lot with our bigger lineups.
Our marketing, right? We've seen success. 2 different teams now use marketing as a small forward. in bigger lineups. And no, I agree. I think they're going to want to tighten the rotation from 10 down to 9. And to me, to maximize that 9-man rotation, which is going to include Santi Aldama, he's got to play some small forward. Otherwise, I don't know where the minutes are coming from. But on the Conchar thing, here's a trivia question for you. I talked about Dylan Brooks shooting 23% from 3 in the calendar year.
Yeah.
What is John Conchar's points per game average in the calendar year?
Oh, I would go with 1.7.
Oh, you're underselling him. It's like 2 point something.
Oh, it's only because he scored 5 last game, or he's 6. Did he make 2 threes last game?
He made 2 threes in the last game.
Hey, you want to cherry pick stats? I believe he's 5 out of 9 on 3-pointers in his last 4. That's 56%, baby. He's back.
The Grizzlies, by the way, something to look for tonight. If anyone's listening to this before the game against the Sixers, the Grizzlies have still not had a perimeter player off their bench, a 1, 2, or 3. I'm not including Aldama. A 1, 2, or 3 off their bench score double digits in the month of February. Not once. Not once. So we'll
I mean, I could have thrown in. I assume Tyus Jones's slump's going to be over. Maybe. That's another one.
You got one more. What's your third?
My third. The thing I'm looking forward to, I guess, is I guess a mixture. I'll pick this one. I'm looking forward to the Grizzlies playing some real teams. Playing some fully healthy, good basketball teams. Obviously, they're going to play, it looks like a fully healthy Sixers team on Thursday night. Then they have to play the Nuggets. They're playing with the Nuggets twice coming up. They're playing the Lakers twice coming up. They got the Warriors twice, the Mavericks twice. They play the Clippers a ton of times. These are all very, very good teams. The
3 games against Dallas.
So I'm ready. And part of that is I want to see our team full strength. I guess that could be another one. Hopefully we finally get to see our team full strength again, but I'm ready to see how this team stacks up against these other good teams and to figure out where we are exactly.
All right. We finally got something different. So my third is I want to see Jaren Jackson Jr.'s recent offensive emergence continue. Jaren has played 40 games this season. In the first 30 games he played, he hit the 17 field goal attempt mark 3 times in 30 games. In the last 10 games before the break, he did it 5 times in 10 games. That's not something he's doing. That's something the team is doing, right? The team is getting more shots for Jaren. I need to see that continue. I need to see that happening 5 times in 10 games. That's pretty good. If you can give me half the games Jaren plays, he gets at least 17 field goal attempts. I will feel better about him and better about the Grizzlies and better about their half-court offense starting to become something that's feasible in postseason basketball. I need to see – everyone's going to focus on the fouls with Jaren, and for good reason. He's had a higher – I wrote about this in my column this week. His high foul games on national television, it's not an illusion. He's at a much higher concentration of high foul games in national TV games. And 7 of the next 10 games the Grizzlies play are going to be on national television. So that'll get tested right out of the gate. But I'm more focused on I need to see the offensive emergence continue. He's at 19 points a game, I think, over the past month or so. 20. Let's break 20, Jaren, the rest of the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Jaren's been carrying the team, and I definitely think the Grizzlies' offensive woes and their struggles in the half court, they definitely would be helped if Jaren can keep firing these shots and keep putting pressure on the defense. He did a good job basically saving that Jazz game by getting to the line a lot. And that's great to see. So yeah, I'm with you there. Jaren continue the offensive aggression, and Grizzlies teammates look for Jaren. I know there's supposed to be this egalitarian offense where you spread it around. I don't believe in it. We got to get Jaren the ball. We got to find some ways to score in the half court, because that's one thing I was talking about on Grits and Grinds this week. The half court numbers still being terrible. That's mission totally failed this year so far. And I don't know how much to blame the team not being healthy, but Steven Adams can't be everything. He can't be everything for your team if you feel like you're going to make the conference finals or you're that good.
I want the Grizzlies to have 3 20-point scorers next season, and let's get an early jump on that in this last one with Jaren. We got Keith Parrish from Grits and Grinds and Fast Break Breakfast joining us on this bonus edition of the Daily Memphian Grizzlies pod. We're going to take a break, hear from our sponsor, and then we'll be back to talk about some post-trade deadline aftermath and recalibrating the conference a little bit.
all Grizz all the time. Stay connected and follow at memphisgrizzlies and at Grind City Media across all social channels, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for breaking news, one-of-a-kind content, and all the perspectives you won't find anywhere else.
All right, Keith. So I think this was the last time that you were on my show rather than me on yours. Maybe it was 2 times ago, but I think last time I submitted a gimmick. I made you play along with the gimmick where you were pretty dismissive of my gimmick. And my gimmick was, what can the Grizzlies get for Danny Green and low-level draft assets at the trade deadline?
Yeah.
We're dismissive of the idea that they would do such a thing. I would lord this over you more if Luke Kennard had been on my list. And he was not.
Yeah, I mean, my official guess before the trade deadline was the Grizzlies would do absolutely nothing. So I was wrong there. They did flip Danny Green for Luke Kennard. My incorrect reasoning was, if you don't value Danny Green as a player, why in the world did you do the Melton deal? Well, I guess now we know they wanted to trade Melton and 3 second-round picks for David Roddy and Luke Kennard, and I am underwhelmed by that return. And so you were right. Yeah. Flipping the Kennard deal. Again, the thing you've highlighted and I've highlighted, the thing I like about the Kennard deal is the optionality it gives you going forward beyond this season. Obviously the large salary that he's going to be making can help them if they're going to make some trades. If in fact they did offer all those first round picks for Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, having Luke Kennard around is going to be very useful for future trades.
It was probably wrong of me to let you cook so much on the idea that the Grizzlies wanted Danny Green. I mean, I knew as a matter of reporting that when the Grizzlies made that trade on draft night, Danny Green was just salary matching. He had nothing, absolutely zero to do with making that trade. Now, once they met him and they got him in the camp and they talked to him, that did start to change a little bit. And they came around to the idea of, Danny Green could be good for us, both on the court, both off the court, and then maybe on the court. But I know for a fact that when they made that trade, they were just they were out on, for better or worse, they were out on Melton and in on Roddy. And that's what that was about. And that does not look good right now. We'll see what that looks like. I still don't think that looks good. The idea of, now you've traded people. I've heard some people say you really traded Melton now for Roddy and Kennard. Well, you traded Melton in 3 seconds for Roddy. In 3 seconds and the 22nd pick, does that cancel out? Maybe, maybe not. I would rather have DeAnthony Melton than Luke Kennard myself personally. I'm guessing you would agree with that. So I thought it was right for them to make that kind of move if better things were not available to them. And as you pointed out, and this is not I don't intend this as a snarky way. My favorite thing about it is that they preserved the salary spot from the Danny Green contract. Gives them more options going into the summer. Let's start with the Kennard piece. It was funny. As much as I wrote and talked about trade deadline stuff, I sort of never mentioned him. It's not because I never thought about him. He was sort of right under the level of players I was interested in. And also, I just didn't necessarily see the Clippers moving him to a team like the Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies like Kennard more than I do. I would have preferred some other players who maybe are not as pure of a shooter, but have some other skills that he lacks. I mean, I certainly think given the wasteland that their perimeter depth has been, he should help them. But I have pretty measured expectations for what I think he's going to be. Were you with Kennard?
Well, the basketball player Kennard, the not thinking about his salary going forward, the on the court Kennard, I did in fact mention him as an idea on Grits and Grinds, and I said would I swap Danny Green for Luke Kennard, and my takeaway was no. I would rather keep Danny Green. I think just because I value the size on the wing. I just don't want to add another negative wingspan small wing player despite the shooting. I would rather hope Danny Green return to form as a bench player, as opposed to adding just the pure shooting of Luke Kennard. Then once the deal went down, I started I'm trying to look into what do I not know about Luke Kennard? Clippers people were telling me like Ty Lue was not happy with him basically ever because he didn't shoot enough. They couldn't get him to shoot. Then I'm looking at his stats, and he has in fact maintained his high field goal percentages and 3-point percentages in his 2 playoff runs he's had previously. So like maybe that will help the Grizzlies, but I can't imagine that the Grizzlies' way forward, especially with their lack of other, I guess, problems, which I think are rebounding and perimeter defense outside of Dylan Brooks. He doesn't alleviate that at all. So like, I don't know. I'm a little dubious that it's going to be the difference between, I don't know, winning a single playoff game. Like maybe he can swing one playoff game if he, knocks down 5-6 3-pointers, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like a sideways move of like, that's fine. It might help, but I don't really know.
I just don't, as much as the Grizzlies need 3-point shooting, and as much as 3-point shooting is so paramount in the NBA now, I just don't value that in a vacuum as much relative to all the other facets of the game. And I think my concern with Kennard is that he that he doesn't add enough of the other stuff. Yeah. That in terms of the size and the limitations in terms of playmaking and dynamism and defense, I mean, to me, this is already an issue I have with Tyus Jones, and I think we're sort of in agreement. Neither of us have really liked the Tyus Jones, John Morant combo stuff that they've done. I don't know how much better Kennard's going to be in some of those situations, alongside a Moran, alongside a Bane, in terms of what he gives you defensively, in terms of playmaking, in terms of whatever. When I watched the one game he's played in Memphis, which I was sitting courtside for, Drew was gone, so I was down on the court for that. He had a couple of nice passes. He made a couple shots, a couple of really nice passes, but I was struck by the effort it took for him to make plays off the bounce when guys closed out. The effort it took for him to get a shot off against the closing defense, the effort it took for him to find enough space to make a read and to make a pass. I'm just the idea that there's more to find. If you go back to the Detroit era, that the one season of Detroit, that there's more usage to get from him, more playmaking to get from him, more volume of just shot creation, both for himself and others to get from him. I'm pretty skeptical of that. Now, do I think he'll help you more than like Conchar, Laravia, Roddy, and Zaire Williams have? I do. And so like I'm fine with it from that standpoint, but my expectations are pretty low. I hope to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think in the couple games he's played so far, which of course is a very hilariously small sample size, I was pleased. I was pleased specifically in the home game how he did probe somewhat with the dribble, like he did kind of see what the defense was giving him an attack. And then of course, two very, very basic things. He knocks down a corner 3, which the Grizzlies need. He spaces it out for John Morant there. He makes a technical foul free throw that might just be worth like 0.2 points per game.
Yeah.
Or something, but like, that's good. We got a technical foul free throw shooter who can make some free throws. I mean, just having him where he is such a deadly 3-point shooter. And at the very least, even if he's hesitant to shoot, he will be guarded. And we haven't seen a ton of John Morant playing with him, but I do think like once Steven Adams comes back, I am tantalized by the idea of like Steven and Jaren, and then having Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane alongside John Morant. Hopefully that does even create even more space. I mean, maybe you can space it out even more with no Steven lineup, but I feel like we're going to need Steven to get some offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds in those lineups. So it gives you some options. And it allows you theoretically to play 4-on-4 if Luke's man is always tight with him. Like that is a benefit they don't probably have with any of their other players, because we've seen it this season. And we're going to see it in the playoffs where teams are going to pack the paint. They're just going to sag off. I feel like the Lakers did that really, really well in that famous Shannon Sharp game. Like they just are like beat us from the 3-point line. Like we don't, like they're sagging off of everybody. So just having one more guy who is going to be automatic. Cause I mean, Kennard is like 50% on wide open threes in like I think it's the last 3 seasons. That's nuts. And so like, that's awesome. We need that. But I mean, how much can a guy who probably can't defend up any positions and is not going to help you on the defensive end or on the rebounding where you already have some issues there? I don't know. I don't think it's the difference between getting out of the first or second rounds of the playoffs or anything.
What was your reaction to what did not happen at the deadline, but what was reported to have happened in terms of the Grizzlies making some aggressive bids for some players out there?
I mean, do we have any heart? I know Zach Kleiman said whatever that quote was about, we had some deals we were considering that if we made them, you guys would be saying that we went too far.
I can tell you that what has been reported by others on the Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby fronts, I have reason to believe is true reporting.
Yeah. So like if in fact the Grizzlies offered 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, it makes me pleased all over. Like I woke up on trade deadline day after that deal went down. You know, I'm looking at my phone and I like everybody else, I'm like, wait, is Mikal Bridges available? Because I would give everything for Mikal Bridges. Like I would give everything. Like I was all about it. So the idea that the Grizzlies felt the same way and were prepared to do that gave me a lot of like encouragement. Like, oh, okay. They don't feel like they're good enough. They do feel like this is the perfect piece to go alongside what we already have, and they were willing to do it. So all of that, again, all of that assuages my like general disappointment of like, oh, we swapped Danny Green for Luke Kennard. You know, like that's not anything. Right. And then also like with this team so far, with the depth not being as good, it's like I'm a little disappointed there. The idea that they did try at least to bring in what I thought was the perfect piece encourages me and makes me less prone to criticize basically what they've been doing, because I'm like, all right, they did. If the Raptors tell you no for 3 first-rounders for OG Anunoby, something I'm not sure I would have done. Like OG Anunoby can't dribble or pass really. So it's like, I don't know if he's what I don't know is not every first-round pick is the same, right? Like what sure.
year is it? What are the level of protections on it?
Yep.
Is it yours, or is it in Grizzlies case the Warriors pick? And so, you know, not all first round picks are created equal, and that to me, some of those details is what has not been reported and what I don't know. To me, it's interesting going into the summer. We can table larger discussion on that for later. But with Dylan Brooks heading into free agency, what's clear to me is that the Grizzlies are committed to 3 players and only 3 players. And on one level, I think that's good. I think that's a correct assessment of their roster. Yeah. On the other hand, probably a little bit of a disappointment to them that no one else has sort of forced their way into the core mix, right? Like you know, your hope is that you don't have to go out and trade for one of these guys because Zaire Williams becomes that guy, and there's reason to have doubt about that. So in terms of one last thing before we get to our last bit and get out of here, so. As the dust is settled on the trade deadline, we're starting back the last third or so of the season. It feels like the expectations for the Grizzlies have sort of tamped down a little bit, partly because of what they've done of late, and partly because of some of the moves made by other teams around the NBA. I feel like that's generally fair, but I'm wondering like how much, you know, where would you, if you were, and I did not prepare you totally for this, but if you're power ranking teams that could win a title, like how far down are you putting the Grizzlies on that right now?
They're about, I think they're like 7 or 8 for me. I want to say top of my head, Bucks and Celtics are like teams you'll be stunned if they don't make the conference finals. And then I guess the Sixers could crash that party in the East. I would put the Grizzlies behind the Sixers. And so that's 3 teams. I think the Nuggets are ahead of the Grizzlies. I think the Suns with Kevin Durant are ahead of the Grizzlies. And then I start thinking about like, I don't like the matchup with the Mavericks, and now they have Kyrie Irving, and Josh Green has kind of come on for them, which like seems like he's replacing some of the Dorian Finney-Smith. And so like I never liked that matchup to start with, because that's the best half-court offensive team with the Mavericks against this 22nd half-court offensive team in the Grizzlies. So I would probably even put the Mavericks ahead. And then we haven't talked about the Warriors. I don't like the matchup with the Warriors, and obviously the Warriors are the defending champs and seem to have the Grizzlies number of late. So like, how many's that now? That was 6. The Clippers have been good when Kawhi plays. And like, I don't know what Russell Westbrook's going to do there. So like all of that with the, like, it's been so long since the Grizzlies had Steven Adams and looked right. And also like, I don't know if they are going to shorten their rotation. Like if you told me, this has been like one of my pet, I don't know, things I complain about constantly. Like if you told me in the playoffs, we're going to play 7 or 8 guys, I'm like, okay, we could probably hang with all these teams, you know, like we can hang with them because our top line is elite. And last year I did the thing where I'm like, man, if you just played these 8 guys, I think you could make a really tight rotation. And then I go back and I filter all the lineup stats by like, hey, if you just played these 8 guys last year in the playoffs, Grizzlies had like a +15 net rating. They lost all the other minutes. Like they lost to the the Conchar, Zaire, Xavier Tillman minutes last season, but like we played them. We still played those guys in the postseason. So like, I don't know. Are we going to get in the postseason and it's like, yep, Luke Kennard played 28 minutes and Conchar played 12 minutes and Xavier Tillman started a few games. And it's like, what are we doing? So I don't know. Like, I don't trust them really to really shorten the rotation to a degree that I think it's going to take to advance past some of these teams. So, I mean, the next 11 games, they can definitely sway my opinion. Like 2 months ago, I thought the Grizzlies were, in the top 5 of teams that had a chance to win the NBA title. And now I'm like, I've definitely lost my enthusiasm somewhat. And that might just be short-sighted of me as someone who talks about the team, every day. And we get carried away by the immediate, I guess the short term.
So I am slightly higher, I think, at this point on the Grizzlies' chances, but not by much. I've got them. I did this exercise this morning. I've got them 7th among all teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
I still have them just ahead of the Clippers, Warriors, and Mavs. I think there's somewhat of a different question of how do you feel about a head-to-head playoff series against these teams versus likelihood of a team getting out of the conference. I just, are the Clippers going to, are they going to sustain for 3 rounds of the playoffs? Right.
Yeah.
Given the health questions and some of the other stuff. But I think it's correct, even though I think the Grizzlies will hold the 2nd seed, I'm guessing, in the West. I think it is a correct assessment to push them down a little bit in terms of playoff expectation. I'll be interested to see how people will react if that declining expectation is met. I mean, if they lose a first-round series to, a Clippers team or a Mavs team or something like that as the home court advantage, I don't know how much latitude people are going to give them and say, oh, well, so I'll be interested to see in terms of that. But,
well, if you're actually handicapping like who's going to come out of the West, the one huge benefit the Grizzlies have, as opposed to just like a wide open round robin tournament, is that 2nd seed. And it's possible that if they're paired up on the bracket with the Kings, if you end up only having to play one of like Warriors, Suns, Nuggets, Mavericks, which is possible. Like,
have you looked at how the current standings are set up?
Yeah, they're amazing. It's amazing.
And so if you get, now anything could happen. You could lose in the first round to the Wolves, right? They almost did last year.
Yeah. But if you're playing like the Pelicans in the first round, the Kings in the second round, your odds of winning the title have skyrocketed, even if you might not be as good as the other teams, who are on the other side of the bracket.
I hate to jump on board with everyone else. I don't take the Kings seriously in the playoffs. So I think you're not playing the Kings. You're playing whoever beats the Kings in the second round, I'm guessing, which is currently set up would be
yeah, that's fair too. Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at right now as it's set up, you're looking at maybe Minnesota, Dallas, Denver as your path, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix as your path.
Yeah.
Which is a better path than like Warriors, Phoenix, Nuggets as a path, which is sort of maybe a worst case scenario. All right. So I've gotten away from the sum. We're going to get back to it now. We're going to close up shop.
Yeah.
This is There's More to Life Than Basketball segment of the podcast.
Yeah.
Where I ask you, Keith Parrish, citizen of the world, for something you're interested in that is not basketball related.
So here's what I've been doing. Here's what I've been doing on my my All-Star break. This is hopefully the least cultured suggestion anyone's ever brought onto one of these for you. By the way, you recommended a Jerry Lee Lewis record to me to listen to, and I did. I was listening in the car with my kids, and it made me uncomfortable. Jerry Lee Lewis was so sexual in the way he sang his song. Well, I'm like, this is not okay. I don't like how he's saying "Shake It." This is gross.
I didn't say it was family time.
It wasn't family time. I'm like, this is a lot, man. Anyways, no. Here's what I've been doing with my free time. I've been posting all my podcasts on YouTube. I wasn't a huge YouTube subscriber, and then the YouTube algorithm is just pitching these things to me, and it's like, hey, man.
12-year-old market is what you're doing.
This is what I'm doing. Well, so obviously everyone knows about Red Dead Redemption, this video game, huge video game. I'm a fan. Red Dead Redemption 2, a lot of fun. It's like the only reason I played basically any next generation console, but hadn't played it in a while. I start using YouTube a lot, and YouTube algorithm is just like pitching me these things like, hey, did you know you could do this in Red Dead Redemption? And I'm like, no, I did not. And one of the things that this algorithm told me to do was like, hey, you can get outside of this video game map. There's like this massive it's a sprawling open world game. It's a cowboy game, riding around on your horse. But they're like, hey, you can go outside the map, and it's all this undeveloped stuff. And so what I've been doing the last couple nights, I will like put on music, or I even listen to a podcast, but like, there's like these hacks to get outside of the world, so you don't run into any like bad guys or anything. It's just this massive landscape you can walk your video game horse through, So I've just been riding through these like ice ravines, going over these mountains, finding these stuff again, this is like
your best life.
This is the best life. Like I know the last time I told you I was watching all these 50s and 60s movies, I'm reading books. No. I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2, but not in the way you're supposed to. I am doing these hacks to like get outside of the map and then just walk around through these Western landscapes. And I've been having a lot of fun.
It's funny you should have a video game one today. So I'm in this trivia league.
Yeah.
And one of the things that taught me about myself is that video games is one of the subjects I know least about in the entire world. It's like right up there with classical music.
Okay.
You know, like music and video games.
I know classical music too. So yeah. All right.
You're the opposite of me in this.
That's right.
So today in my match in my trivia league today, we get 6 questions. I got 5 out of 6 right. The one I missed was about video games. I'm going to see if you can answer the question correctly. I'm sure you can.
Oh no. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
The character King Koopa, who first appeared in a video game from 1985 as the leader of the turtle-like Koopas, is also well known by what other name?
Is that just Bowser?
It's Bowser.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Well, there's a big Super Mario Brothers movie coming out this year.
I've actually played. That's one of the few video games I've actually played. Mario Brothers. I have no idea what people are called, or not even people. What objects are called? Whatever.
Here's the thing: my 8-year-old, we let him play my 8-bit Nintendo, and we let him play the old Super Mario Brothers, and he's obsessed. And he apparently found out what they were all called. And he recently was like, "Hey, what are the turtles called?" And I was like, "I don't have any idea. I don't remember." And he's like, "They're called Koopas." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do remember that." Okay, so I actually that recently had been on my brain. So yeah, I could have helped you there. Video games and classical music, I could probably be your trivia partner to help out.
There you go. So my recommendation this week is neither video games nor classical music. I'm going to recommend both a recent TV series, streaming service TV series, and a book series, because the TV series is based on the book series. I've now experienced some of both. And that is the series on Apple TV, Slow Horses. You familiar with this?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I haven't seen it, but I'm aware that it exists.
So I think people have Apple TV because that's what Ted Lasso was on, and everyone apparently watches Ted Lasso. I've never seen Ted Lasso, but we have Apple TV. Slow Horses is based on a British spy novel series. My wife has read the entire series, and that's why we watched it when there was a TV adaptation, because she was excited about that because she's read all the books. It's really good. Each season is only like 5 or 6 episodes long. Each season is based on one of the books in the series. It's about sort of low rent. It's about sort of the remember the Hateful Eight Grizzlies led by like Lance Stevenson, and it's like that version of like MI6. It's all
Chris Anderson and
it's like this. It's like the motley group of reject spies who they put all in some suburban outpost and give them busy work to do and hope that they'll quit. And then they find themselves doing things. And Gary Oldman plays the leader of this. The atmosphere is thick. Like when this dude takes his socks off, you can smell it through the TV. Like that's how the atmosphere feels.
Yeah.
I think there's been 2 series. I think it's very good. And I've actually read 2 of the books so far. So I'm into that. So if you're into either like procedural spy craft kind of TV movie stuff, or like page turning spy novels, Mick Herron is the author. I recommend the Slow Horses series on TV or in print form.
Yeah. So my wife and we each used our free Apple TV trial to watch season 1 and season 2 of Ted Lasso. So we're out of Apple TV trials now. Right. I guess I'll have to pay for it for a month and punch out Slow Horses.
We also have some free trial.
It sounds up my alley. I do like a spy thing. So yeah.
All right. So that's my recommendation. Keith Parrish, thanks for joining us. To tell people where they can find you and your various work.
Yeah, Grizzlies fans, listen to Grits and Grinds, available wherever you get podcasts, also available on YouTube, and then listen to Fast Break Breakfast for some general NBA silliness.
And I, of course, am Chris Herrington. You can find me on Twitter if you're on Twitter at Chris Herrington. You can find me on Facebook, but you won't find much there. And again, you can subscribe to this podcast, the Daily Memphian Grizzlies podcast, wherever you get your pods. You can always listen to them on the site if you do that. There are people who do that, which I find weird, but we welcome it. If you want to come to dailymemphian.com and listen to a podcast, but you should come to dailymemphian.com to do other things like read. You should subscribe to us at the Daily Memphian. You should sign up for Drew Hill's twice weekly Grizzlies Insider newsletter, which will have links to everything we've done since the previous newsletter. Basketball's back. We're excited about that. Thanks for joining us, and we're out of here.